Oh, hi, I'm Dr. Cronin. While I was on a journey from New York, uh, there was a man who was watching me so closely, and I ignored him, thinking that he was going to be an annoying shipboard contact. Yet, I observed him, and let me describe how he was. His complexion, eyes, hair, dress, disposition. There was nothing importunate about him. On the contrary, on the opposite, he seemed affected by a troubled, rather touching diffidence. He was a shy man, lacking confidence. He was in his early 40s, rather short in build. Physically, he was so short, with a fair complexion, a white color skin tone, and clear blue eyes. His thin hair had begun to stop growing from the forehead. Okay? So he was somewhat a bald man. His dark suit, sober tie, and rimless spectacles gave evidence of a serious and reserved disposition. He was wearing a dark suit and a sober tie, a plain, not so bright color tie, and there was an edgeless spectacle worn by him. This gave the proof of a serious and reserved nature of the person's character. Okay, this is the graphical description about the man who was looking at me. At this point, the bugle sounded for dinner and I went below. On the following forenoon, the time before noon, the next day, okay, following day means next day, I again observed my fellow voyager, the traveler, who was watching me earnestly, very sincerely from his deck chair. Now a lady was with him. Obviously, his wife. Very clearly, it was his wife. The situation by this time had begun to intrigue me. This situation, the man who was looking at me from the previous day, uh, had developed in me some uh, interest. I discovered from my steward, the person who was looking after the affairs on the ship, is the steward, and he told me that they were Mr. and Mrs. John S. Uh, from I don't want to disclose his real name, that's why I have used the word John S. They were from a small suburb of London, okay, an area in the outside boundary of London. Another day passed without event. I began to feel certain that Mr. S would remain too shy to carry out his obvious desire to approach me. It was very clear from the looks that he wanted to talk to me, but he was so hesitant to come near me. However, on our final evening at sea, Mrs. S decided the matter. The final day of the voyage, the wife of Mr. John, decided the matter, means concluded that hesitancy of approaching uh, me. How did that happen? With a firm pressure on his hand and a whispered word in his ear, she pushed her husband towards me as I passed along the deck.
Excuse me, doctor. I wonder if I might introduce myself.
He spoke almost breathlessly, offering me the visiting card he held in his hand and studying my face to see if the name meant anything to me. Then, as it plainly did not, he went on with the same awkwardness, with the same lack of skill in meeting somebody.
If you could spare a few minutes, my wife and I would like to have a word with you.
So they asked me some time to speak to them. A moment later, I was occupying the vacant chair beside them. Near to them, I sat with them. Haltingly, he told me, stopping and starting often, because he seemed to be so very, less confident. He told me that this had been their first visit to America. It was not entirely a holiday trip. They had been making a tour of the New England states. New England means America, okay? They had been making a tour of the New England states, inspecting many of the summer recreational camps for young people there. Afterwards, they had visited settlement houses in New York. Settlement houses are the community of people living together, which is actually a legal residence by government. What was the purpose of the visit of the Voyager and his wife to America? Let me make it clear. It was to inspect many of the summer recreational camps for young people there. Had visited settlement houses in New York and other cities to study the methods employed in dealing with cases of backward, maladjusted, and delinquent youth. The young people having mental and emotional problems live in the settlement houses. Also, the delinquent people showing a tendency to commit crimes live there. So, how they are made good is to be studied. So, Mr. John visited such settlement houses. There was in his voice and manner, in fact, in his whole personality, a genuine enthusiasm. Okay, intensity of feeling that was disarming, that made people less suspicious. Actually, I was more suspicious before. No, I found myself liking him instinctively without uh, any being taught. In a very natural way, I started liking him. Questioning him further, I learned that he and his wife had been active for the past 15 years in the field of youth welfare. He was by profession a solicitor, okay, a lawyer who prepares legal documents. By profession, he was a solicitor, but in addition to his practice at the courts, he found time to act as director of a charitable organization dedicated to the care of boys and girls, mostly from city slums, who had fallen under the ban of the law. I felt impressed because, this man found time to look after, okay, the boys and girls who had fallen under the ban of the law, the criminal, children, and they who lived in a state of despair and poverty in slum areas. As he spoke with a real feeling, I got a vivid, a very clear graphic picture of the work these two people were doing. The young man, Mr. S, John S, and his wife. I learned how they took a derelict adolescents, those adolescents, teenagers who are in a bad condition. They are taken by them from the juvenile courts. You know, juvenile courts are those courts that deal with criminals who are immature in age. They place them in a healthy environment, healed them in mind and body, and sent them back into the world. They were given training in a useful handicraft, a trade that is requiring the skill of hand, which made them fit to take their place as worthy members of the community. It was a work of redemption. It's like a work which saved young teenagers from the power of evil, that stirred the heart, excited the heart, and I asked what had directed his life into this channel of taking care the derelict teenagers.